In the 80s, Sean Young was a rising star. She co-starred with Harrison Ford, Bill Murray, Kevin Costner, and James Woods. She worked with directors Ridley Scott, David Lynch, and Oliver Stone. In 1989, she did not play the starring role of Vicky Vale in Batman. And then she became a cautionary tale of career implosion. Today, I would like to understand what happened to the career of one of the most promising actresses of the 80s. Sean Young came to Hollywood after working as a model and studying ballet in New York. In 1980, Young made her movie debut in the Merchant Ivory production Jane Austen in Manhattan. The movie was shown on the BBC and received a limited theatrical release. She read for the role of Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Ultimately, Spielberg decided Sean Young was too green. Young was cast in the Bill Murray comedy Stripes. Despite this, Ivan Reitman, the director, stated that he cast Young because of her sweetness. Sean Young's next film role was the one for which she will be remembered. In Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, she played the replicant Harrison Ford falls in love with. Was the film loosely based on Philip Dick's novel? The film was set in a far-off dystopian future in Los Angeles in 2019. Scott described Young as a classic beauty. Young's photograph captivated Philip Dick, who requested to meet her in person. Young was described as a super destructive, cruel, beautiful dark-haired woman by the legendary author. Ford and Young had fantastic on-screen chemistry. They were equally explosive off-screen, as they didn't get along. The co-stars' tension was so intense that the film crew jokingly referred to the couple's big scene as the hate scene. Blade Runner was unfortunately ahead of its time. It is now widely regarded as a science fiction classic. However, when it was released in 1982, it received mixed reviews and a mixed audience. In fact, Blade Runner was outperformed at the box office by another film starring Sean Young that summer. Young Doctors in Love was a soap opera satire starring Michael McKean. Gary Marshall's wacky medical comedy was a modest box office success. Its $30 million gross made it the 23rd highest grossing film of 1982. Blade Runner came in 27th place with a gross of $27.5 million. Young returned to science fiction in David Lynch's big screen adaptation of Frank Herbert's classic novel, Dune. Unlike Blade Runner, Dune was not an underappreciated masterpiece. The movie had a long and troubled past before Lynch came on board. Ridley Scott took a crack at adapting Dune for the big screen. He planned to divide the story into two movies, but ultimately left the project to make Blade Runner. Producer Dino De Laurentiis had the right to adapt Herbert's Dune sequels. Lynch claims to have begun work on a script for Dune Messiah. However, those plans were abandoned following the underwhelming performance of the first film. On a budget of $40 million, the film only made $31 million. Young appeared in Oliver Stone's drama Wall Street. There were issues on the set once again. The problems began with casting. Young revealed her disagreements with director Oliver Stone, which resulted in a smaller role in the film and a more difficult time on set. Few people generally think of Sean Young when they think of Wall Street. And at this point, the actress has a strong portfolio. She has collaborated with 3 A-list directors on 7 films. Generally, one would expect an actress's career to progress only upward. However, something went wrong. Her next 2 films, in which she starred, were box office flops. In 1988, Sean Young co-starred with James Woods in the drama, The Boost. They played a married couple who fell on hard times when they both became addicted to cocaine. The movie was written by Ben Stein. The former Nixon speechwriter turned actor wrote the film paired with Sean Young and James Woods. The Boost didn't make much of an impression when it was released. Since then, it has largely been forgotten. If you remember, it's probably for the behind-the-scenes drama between Young and Woods. It's hard to figure out exactly what went down between them. There were rumors of an affair which both actors have denied. But in 1989, Woods and his then-bride, Sarah Owen, filed a $2 million harassment lawsuit against Sean Young, claiming that she left headless baby dolls outside their doorstep. The case was settled out of court. Regardless of who was at fault, the entire ordeal hurt Young's career. Rumors swirled, making Young out to be a crazy spurned lover out of fatal attraction. Public perception was that Young was a loon. In the end, The Boost got mixed reviews. It had minimal impact at the box office. And yet, it would undoubtedly impact Young's career. Around this time, an accident forced Young to drop out of Tim Burton's Batman. Young was originally cast as Vicky Vale, but Young was injured while riding a horse. The role was recast with Kim Basinger. Instead of a star-making turn in Batman, Young appeared in Cousins, a remake of a French comedy starring Ted Danson. Cousins was directed by Joel Schumacher and co-starred Danson and William Peterson. Both actors would eventually go on to star on the TV show CSI. Director Joel Schumacher was warned against working with Young, but he enjoyed working with her.
When I hired her for Cousins, I got a lot of phone calls from people saying I was crazy. Sean is an artist, and she doesn't know how to monitor herself. She will pour out her emotional roadmap of the day to you, and it can be quite frightening.
Cousins received mixed reviews and disappointed at the box office. In 1990, Young starred opposite Nicolas Cage and Tommy Lee Jones in the Top Gun knockoff Firebirds. Continuing her tendency to be critical of her leading man, Young described Cage as a really good actor. Firebirds got bad reviews and bombed at the box office. Around the same time, Young was fired from Dick Tracy. The official reason was that she did not come across as maternal enough for the role of Tess Trueheart. Young claimed she was fired for refusing the advances of star and director Warren Beatty. Beatty denies this accusation. Young later described Beatty as impossibly self-centered, more vain than any woman I've ever met. Young also filmed scenes for 2 Woody Allen movies. In 1989 Crimes and Misdemeanors, she played a character who was supposed to end up with Allen's character at the end of the movie. And in Alice, she played one of Mia Farrow's wealthy friends. In both cases, Allen cut Young's scenes from the final movie. In 1991, Young appeared in another modern film noir, A Kiss Before Dying. Her performance was so bad, she won 2 Golden Raspberries, one for each twin. Sorry to say, they are richly deserved. A Kiss Before Dying got mostly negative reviews. While audiences were ignoring Young's latest release, she grabbed headlines for something else. Obviously, Batman was a huge hit. So when the sequel was being cast, Young considered herself a front-runner for the role of Catwoman. However, Burton wouldn't see her. So she showed up at Warner Brothers Studios in a homemade Catwoman costume and demanded to be seen. Reportedly, Burton hid under his desk. Later, Young made the unfortunate decision to take her one Catwoman show on the road. She appeared in her homemade Catwoman costume on the Joan Rivers show and once again pleaded for the job. Years later, Young was still talking about the snub.
I don't know who got the idea that I wasn't right for the part, but and I know that I'm exceedingly right for the part, and I don't know what this bullshit is. The fact that I made them see me, that aggressiveness on my part, was just not allowed for women to do. But for me, it totally backfired. It had the effect of career derailment.
In 1994, Young appeared opposite Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Expectations were non-existent for the silly comedy, but Carrey's brand of humor hit a nerve with audiences and Ace was a surprise smash. Odds are, this is the last time you saw Sean Young on the big screen. Well, further projects of the actress went straight to video or filmed for television. Lack of box office successes, difficult character and ambiguous reputation in Hollywood gave up on the career of an actress. In 2017, the Blade Runner sequel finally happened. Young's character from the first movie, Rachel, does make an appearance, but Young didn't film any new footage for the movie. Instead, through digital effects wizardry, her image was grafted onto actress Lauren Pita. Young was on the set that day to serve as a creative consultant. Sean Young is now in her 60s, an age at which most actresses struggle to get roles in major films, even if they don't have a bad reputation. Recent interviews suggest that Young has long since given up any expectation of being big in Hollywood again, and she seems to be at peace with that.